Good morning, students. Today we are going to start a new lesson called I Want Something in a Cage from the book An Alien Hand. This lesson is about Mr. Purcell who owns a pet shop and a visitor visits his shop and does something very unusual thing. And what is that strange thing we will discover in the lesson. So, Mr. Purcell owns a pet shop. There is constant noise of screeching and twittering in the shop, but Mr. Purcell is happily unaware of it. So, he has a pet shop and it is always filled with the unpleasant loud noise and short high sounds of birds. One cold morning, a strange customer calls. Mr. Purcell did not believe in ghosts. Nevertheless, the man who bought the two doves and his strange act immediately thereafter left him with a distinct sense of the uncanny. These lines tells us that the man who bought two doves from him did something strange, and his strange act left Mr. Purcell confused with a distinct means clearly different sense of the uncanny. Uncanny means something unusual, as though behind his departed customer there had lingered the musty smell of an abandoned haunted house. As the customer left, departed customer means after the departure of the customer, there had lingered means stayed, there had stayed the musty, the old, the unpleasant, the wet smell of an abandoned haunted house. Abandoned means something which has not been in use for a long time. Mr. Purcell was a small, fussy man, red cheeks, and a tight melon stomach. This is how Mr. Purcell used to look physically. Large glasses magnified his eyes so as to give him the appearance of a wise and genial owl. Genial means friendly and cheerful. So he used to look like a wise and cheerful owl. He owned a pet shop. He sold cats and dogs and monkeys. He dealt in fish food and bird seed, prescribed remedies for ailing canaries, and displayed on his shelves long rows of ornate and gilded cages. So this was the business of Mr. Purcell. He used to sell cats and dogs, monkeys. He also used to sell fish food and bird seed. His task was also to prescribe remedies for ailing canaries. Ailing means not in a healthy state, and canaries are small bright yellow birds which are famous for their singing. He considered himself something of a professional man. A constant stir of movement pervaded his shop. Whispered twitters, sly rustling, squeals, cheeps, and sudden squeaks. So, students, these lines shows that his shop was always full of movement. Different type of noises used to come from his shop. Whisper, twitter, sly rustling, squeals, cheeps, squeaks. These are all noises of birds and animals. Small feet scampered in frantic circles, frightened, bewildered, blindly seeking. It means the small feet of animals and birds they used to scampered. Scampered means to run, and frantic means in a frightened state. So the small feet of animals and birds used to run in the shop. They were confused. Across the shelves pulsed this endless flicker of life. Here, life has been referred to birds and animals. But the customers who came in said, aren't they cute? Look at that little cage. They are sweet. Customers used to get very impressed by his work. They used to admire the birds and animals in the shop, and Mr. Purcell himself would smile and briskly rub his hands and emphatically shake his head. Mr. Purcell used to rub his hands whenever he used to respond to the comments of his customers and emphatically shake his head. Emphatically means in a forceful way. Each morning, when the routine of opening his shop was completed, it was the proprietor's custom to perch on a high stool. So, every morning, whenever he used to open his shop, after opening the shop, he used to sit on a high stool. Proprietor means the owner of the shop. So, it was the custom of the owner of the shop, who was Mr. Purcell himself, to sit on a high stool behind the counter, unfold his morning paper, means newspaper, and digest the day's news. He used to read the newspaper every morning after opening his shop. As he read, he would smirk, frown, reflectively purse his lips, knowingly lift his eyebrows, nod in grave agreement. So, as he used to read different types of news from the newspaper, he used to give reaction on every news. He would smirk. Smirk means to smile in an unpleasant way. He would frown. It means he would lift his eyebrows in an angry way. Reflectively purse his lips. He used to purse his lips as if he was thinking something. Knowingly lift his eyebrows, nod in grave agreement. Grave means serious agreement. He read everything, even advice to the love lawn and detailed columns of advertisement. He used to read every word written in the newspaper. It was a rough day. A strong wind blew against the high plate glass windows. Smoke filmed the wintry city, and the air was grey with a thick frost. Having completed his usual task, Mr. Purcell again mounted the high stool and unfolded his morning paper. He adjusted his glasses and glanced at the day's headlines. Chirping and squeaking and mewing vibrated all around him as he was sitting in the shop. Yet Mr. Purcell heard it no more than he would have heard the monotonous ticking of a familiar clock. So he was reading newspaper, he was in his shop, all the noise were around him, but he was not paying any attention to the noises around him. He was focused in the newspaper and he could pay attention to the monotonous, that is boring ticking of a familiar clock. It means he was least interested in the noises of the animals and birds. There was a bell over the door that jingled whenever a customer entered. Whenever a customer used to enter, the bell used to jingle. That was over the door. This morning, however, for the first time Mr. Purcell could recall, it failed to ring. Means the bell did not ring. Simply he glanced up and there was the stranger standing just inside the door as if he had materialized out of thin air. As if he had come suddenly. Okay. There was a stranger and the bell had not rung. The storekeeper slid off his stool. From the first instant, he knew instinctively, unreasonably, that the man hated him. But out of habit, he rubbed his hands briskly together, smiled, and nodded. "Good morning," he beamed. "What can I do for you?" So, as the stranger entered his shop, Mr. Purcell got an instinct that this man is not going to like him, that this man hated him. But he smiled politely and he said, "What can I do for you?" It means, what do you want? So, students, this was the first part of the explanation of the lesson. I want something in a cage. If you have any problem in the part discussed today, you can ask. Thank you.